grandpa stole his first buggy in 1892. I met your grandma pig slopping in 46.
Oh, every Christmas we'd visit my Uncle Fred in prison.
And welcome, America, to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. I'll tell you what, you're going to hear some stories today you've never heard before. I promise. Coming up here in about 10 minutes, we're going to revisit the DeWitt cousins who dug up their ancestor and mine, and you won't believe what's been happening. And now it's time to head out to Edinburgh, Scotland, where David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org, is standing by for Family Histoire news. How's it going over there, Dave?
Oh, it's been wonderful. I mean, there's lots of genealogical discoveries that we made for people. And then on top of it, I got to do a little bit of traveling around. I went up to Loch Ness. Didn't see anything that looked like a plesiosaur, but I think I saw a log in the water.
Okay. Where are you going next?
Well, I'm going to go down to the border of England and Scotland and go to Hadrian's Wall and travel around some ruins of some ancient forts. Since we're always talking about archaeology in England, I thought maybe I would steal somebody's metal detector and go out there and see what I could find.
All right. What do you got for us today?
Well, Hurricane Katrina was obviously devastating for thousands upon thousands of people a number of years back. One of the families were cleaning out the house of a relative, and in the attic, they found some old bonds. Now, it's not uncommon to find them, but most of them have been cashed in.
Sure.
Well, these water-damaged bonds are still valid fish and are worth upwards of about $250,000.
Yes, this relative had never cashed them in, and as I understand it, the agent who sold them had gone out of business, and these things were in tatters. So they took it to the Louisiana Unclaimed Property Division, and they said, look, you've given us enough here that we can work with that, and the fact is that the agent, before he went under, actually recorded these things. So, yeah, they're good for $250,000. What a nice little windfall, huh?
It is indeed.
It makes me wonder, though, why don't more people go through the attics? There are so many things in attics of old houses, some belonging to your family or maybe somebody else's who was there before. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's sometimes hidden behind a beam or in some little hidden compartment or just right out in the open.
Well, my wife and I will be married 35 years this year, and somewhere in the house I live in, my dad put the savings bonds that we got at our wedding aside. We still can't find them. Maybe my grandkids will find it someday.
Wow.
The story I want to share next is pretty close by. It's in Ireland. And of course, a lot of us have both Irish and Scottish ancestors. And in the case of Irish research has been hindered a lot with the fire in 1922. But there's now efforts with the Heritage Council to work in conjunction with the National Museum of Ireland to go and create local community archives and digitize them. They've already have 30 of them already done.
Wow.
And they're hoping to have maybe almost 3 times that amount in the next few years. One of the unique projects that came out of this, in County Clare, Ireland, in one of the townlands, they've actually done a collection called Who's Been Living in My House? And they've digitized all the land books, and they could tell any piece of property who's lived there between 1855 and 1970. That's pretty impressive.
That's really fun.
I wish I had some County Clare people.
Yeah, no kidding.
Maybe my county will be done next. I'm from Donegal. Hint, hint. Well, I think genealogy affects everybody. I think everybody will get the bug once in their life to do some genealogy. And that's true with a lot of people who are descendant from Cuban families that fled Cuba and now live in, say, Florida, even as far away as Australia. They're starting to research their Cuban-American ancestry. Well, they're doing it so they can become closer to the island that they no longer live on. But they're finding people online, Fish, that are in Cuba looking for their roots, but they're doing it for another reason. They want to become citizens of Spain.
Oh, I see. So that they can get out of the island. So some people are trying to connect to the island, and the people on the island are trying to connect with Spain so they can get off of it.
Exactly. And I think it's fascinating because we don't really think about genealogy for that element to escape someplace, but who knows? Well, I love a good laugh. And of course, one of my favorite things I grew up watching was Monty Python.
Yes.
Well, they've actually found a manuscript that's kind of similar to a Monty Python script. This medieval manuscript reveals a 15th century comedy routine by minstrels. Now, the funny thing about minstrels, they were mostly illiterate, so they weren't writing things down. Everything was delivered as an oral tradition from one to the other, and there was no financial gain for writing them. They weren't printing these off and selling them at local bookshops. The manuscript in question is called the Heeg manuscript, and it's from a family in Derbyshire. But it's interesting because the poems that are in there talk about killer rabbits and jousting bears. Might not seem really important, but to know that your ancestors had a sense of humor is a really wonderful thing. It brings them back to life. And if I remember correctly, from Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail, there was a killer rabbit.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
There was some plagiarism there.
There might have been, but I think the copyright had long expired at that point.
I think you're probably right. We don't have to call Judy Russell on this one.
No.
Well, we're going to go from the 15th century, another century forward to the 16th century, but now we're going to be in North America on Roanoke Island. Many of us obviously heard the story about the lost colony of Roanoke. Well, archaeologists now have found the Native American settlement that was from that era. And they also have found pottery and copper wire, which would have been a traded item from Europeans and not from another tribe nearby. And they found it down 3 feet down in the ground.
Wow.
So, and who knows, someday we may find the burials of some of these unfortunates from the late 1500s.
Interesting. Good stuff.
All right. Well, I just want to say, if you're not a member of American Ancestors, we still welcome you to join. Save $20 by using the coupon code EXTREME on AmericanAncestors.org.
All right, David, thank you so much. We will talk to you in just a little bit with Ask Us Anything. And coming up next, we're going to talk to those guys we talked to back in January who dug up my ancestor and their ancestor in upstate New York, because there's a lot more to the story now. Strange things that have been happening. You're going to want to hear all about it coming up next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Are you stuck in your genealogy research, frustrated by those brick walls that just won't budge, or confused by DNA test results and don't know where to begin? The experts at Legacy Tree Genealogists are here to help you find your missing ancestors and complete your family tree. With over 18 years of experience, Legacy Tree has assisted clients in every state and nearly every country worldwide. We have a vast network of on-site researchers, so no matter where your roots lie, we can work to uncover the answers you seek. Picture the thrill of making that long-awaited connection, finally discovering the missing link to your relatives. That's the joy Legacy Tree brings to countless clients just like you. Whether you're a beginning or seasoned researcher, brick walls happen. But with Legacy Tree by your side, that aha moment is within reach. Visit legacytree.com to learn more about how to work with Legacy Tree Genealogists. Put your family history in our hands, and together we'll unlock the stories of your past. Get started today at legacytree.com.
Hi, Genies. Fisher here, and I hear from so many of you all the time that I love all those family stories on Extreme Genes. Where can I find ancestor stories like those? The best answer? Digitized newspapers. And nobody has more digitized newspaper pages than newspapers.com. Newspapers.com has well over 800 million searchable pages from the United States and countries all over the world. Find those valuable obituaries and marriage accounts, often with photographs. Read your ancestors' funny stories, sad stories, and sometimes shocking stories. It was from newspapers.com that I learned about how my grandfather rescued a boy from a flooded lake during World War II. In another account, I learned that my wife's ancestor ran off with the wife of a farmhand and stole over $20,000 in the process. Newspapers.com is like that box of chocolates we always hear about. You never know what you're going to get. What will you find? Sign up now at newspapers.com. Hey, Genies, as we've dug into our family history explorations over the past year, our community at Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies has taken off. This is where you can meet like-minded genealogists who can help you break through those brick walls and find a whole city behind it, occupied by ancestors whose names you don't even know yet. This is where you can learn from your fellow genies and ask questions, because many in our community have already been into some of the records you're looking for. Genealogy and Breakthrough Strategies is free. What a great place for brainstorming and getting to know other people who totally get your passion for family history research. If you're looking to take the next step in sharpening your skills, here's a great chance to learn from others and give back in areas you've already become expert in. So join us. That page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. It's a long name, but we cover a lot of territory. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. All right, welcome back. It's Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, back in January, episode 445, if you follow the podcast. I had a couple of distant cousins on, distant cousins to each other, distant cousins to me, because we all descend from a man named Cherrick Clayson or Clausen DeWitt. And these cousins literally dug him up. I'm not talking research. I'm talking with shovels and researchers. It was an amazing story. And guys, welcome back to the show, because we got to do a follow-up on this, because a lot has happened since January when we first talked about it. Justin DeWitt is in, where are you, in Kentucky?
I'm located in Ashland, Kentucky. Yes.
Ashland, Kentucky, and down in Louisiana is where our southern boy Gage hangs out as well. And here we are dealing with a grave dig in upstate New York. Just explain the reasons you wanted to do this, guys.
Well, it really goes back to a simple fact that when Gage and I started the genealogical journey together, we found that there was a lot of speculation as to multiple things around Cherrick. One being where he was buried at, and two being where he originated from. So we started on the journey based around that premise to solve these clues. There were several people in the past who's done a lot of genealogical research. Doug Bradley did an amazing amount of research on the DeWitt family. And again, to the same extent, everybody kind of come to the same conclusion that Cherrick would be lost forever and we would never be able to get those answers. So we started a quest that lasted roughly 3 years of investigation, which finally led to the project that we're talking about, the archaeological exhumation, and the validation that all of our hard work paid off and we actually found Cherrick.
Yes, and you got to listen to all the details on the previous show. But Gage, this is not the end of the story. I mean, they're not back in the ground yet. I know you're intending to do that as soon as possible. But yes, what we didn't talk about the first time around, because things were still happening, were the unusual things that took place at that time.
Yeah,
so
unusual is a good way to put it.
Yeah, it really was. And even during the dig, I mean, the very first day, you had some strange stuff starting to happen. And I know that you are not one of these believers in these kinds of things.
No, that's the thing. A little bit of background on me. I've never been a believer in anything supernatural or spiritual per se when it comes to hauntings, but this dig really made me a believer. And Justin was there. We have witnesses. Everything we're claiming, you can prove yourself on Google. You can Google everything we're talking about, third-party sources, so we're not lying. But basically what happened, we started this dig on July 13th of 2022. Justin and I, whenever the students started digging at the plot, Justin and I were leaving the site to go to get some lunch, and we both mentioned how we have a very strange feeling, seeing the students just kind of snitting the grass away and starting to dig down this 10-foot by 10-foot hole in the middle of our family burial plot. We both had a strange feeling. The students stopped digging around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. that day. Justin and I went to grab dinner, and Justin, I'm going to let you tell this. This is your favorite part. I'm going to let you tell this part about the lady at the diner.
Yes. So we were at a place called the King's Diner. We were having dinner. It had been a hot day, very clear skies, and it was just like, hey, we need air conditioning and food. So we were sitting there, and this old lady approached us, probably in her early 70s, and she looked at us and she said, "Are you guys prepared for the storm?" And we're like, "What storm?" And she said, "It looks awful bad outside." And she walked away. That's all she said. We got on and we looked on our maps. Everybody checks their cell phones, and we did. There was nothing. Clear skies, no storms, anything, and it's clear outside. She comes back 2 more times while we're eating, and she's like, "Are you guys going to be okay? The storm's going to be bad." And we're like, "What storm?" And she said, "It's out there. Don't you see it?" Finally, as we're like leaving, she's like, "You guys be careful out there and don't let it get you." And we're like, okay. So at that point, we get in the vehicle and we drive back to the cemetery because we had just set up like the tents and everything, and we wanted to finish putting them together. We just took a break from the heat. Well, when we arrive, it's starting to get to the point of dusk, so the sun's going down, starting to get dark. And when we get there, they're having a tribal drum practice in the church. So all of these native drums are bellowing through the church, which is making it bellow through the town. So you hear these native drum beats going. And then out of nowhere, lightning started to speed up, and it just came on us. And I'm going to hand it back over to Gage to finish telling the story because he tells it much better when we actually got caught in it.
Yeah, so we were out here at the site. It was about 8:30 at night, the first night of the dig. It was only Justin and I out there. There were people inside of the church, like Justin said, doing this tribal drum meeting, and it was very nice. But in hindsight, it was a little spooky. It kind of set the mood for what was about to happen. I was hanging security cameras on the tent we just set up. Justin was erecting the fence around the site because the dig site is in a very public area of uptown Kingston. So it starts drizzling a little bit. We see a little bit of lightning in the distance coming from the north. So Justin and I were parked right across the street from the DeWitt plot, right in front of, I think, what's called erecting the fence around the site because the dig site is in a very public area of uptown Kingston. So it starts drizzling a little bit. We see a little bit of lightning in the distance coming from the north. So Justin and I were parked right across the street from the DeWitt plot, right in front of, I think, what's called Key Bank. Justin was parked right behind me. I was parked right in front of him. We decide to go get in our vehicles. It starts raining a little bit, and we wanted to see how the tent we erected, it was a 10-foot by 20-foot tent. We wanted to see how the tent was going to hold up in the rain. So I'm sitting there, Justin's sitting there right behind me in his car, and the wind starts picking up a little bit, and I'm parked facing north. I can see all the way down Wall Street. The wind starts picking up and starts hailing a little bit, and then I see a white wall coming towards us from the end of Wall Street. And I looked at myself, and I'm not going to lie, I said an expletive, but I said, that's a tornado. I know what a tornado is. I'm from Louisiana. That is a tornado. So as the tornado was coming, man, this thing was like, it was insane. It was definitely a tornado. And just for the record, they have never had a tornado in documented history of Kingston. They never have. And I think these records go back to 1659. Yeah. They've never had a tornado. So I grabbed my hat, covered my face, tucked my head, and sure enough, a tornado slammed us. Slammed our site, picked up our tent, threw it about 25 feet in the air, threw it across the churchyard. It felt like it was going to pick up my car. It didn't. What ended up happening to Justin, it threw a tree through Justin's car, through a tree, and landed right beside his head. And it lasted, I don't know, a total of about 30 seconds. Justin and I hopped out. There's limbs falling everywhere. There's trees falling. We're standing in the middle of the road, Wall Street. Justin and I hop out of our vehicles, and there's a lot of people in uptown, and everybody was saying, oh, that was a bad thunderstorm. I said, man, I'm from Louisiana. That was a tornado. Now, I'm not going to lie. Justin and I were really spooked, really, really spooked. And, Justin, I'm going to let you take it over from here.
Yeah, so the situation was dire immediately after. There was about a foot of water on the roads. You have to imagine tornado destruction in a small town. There's trees down, there's power lines down. And I had to pull an 8-inch in diameter tree out of my car that had stopped an inch from my face.
Well, and this is the thing, though. This is the thing, though, Justin. You are descended from Cherk DeWitt through his son Andries, who died by a piece of wood whacking him in the head, right?
Yes, and so here's the thing. We didn't obviously have the bodies at the time. We knew that he died from a breaking of beams and it crushed him. We always had assumed that it just pinned him down because they said he spoke a few words and died. Just for everybody who's aware, during the exhumation, we removed the bodies. Andreas's skull was severely fractured in multiple places. He died of a severe head injury that was sustained to the right side of his head. And going back to that and looking at it now retrospectively, the tree came at the right side of my head and stopped within an inch of caving my face in. And that shook me very much so. So after I get the tree out of my car, I look at Gage and I'm leaving town. Like,
no, man, let's tell the truth. You were like, I'm getting out of this town. I'm going back to Kentucky.
Yeah, I was ready to leave. I was ready to leave the entire thing because, I was like, I don't know what this is, nor do I care. I'm gone. So Gage did not want to leave. He was like, I got to fix this. I'm like, forget that, man. This is like poltergeist in life. All right. The ground was about 4 inches dug out, right? So it's like an area and it's completely flooded with water around these headstones. There's lightning, all this stuff, trees are down. I get in my car and I drive out, and all the roads are basically blocked with debris except for one, and it's going by the area in Kingston known as the Academy Green. As I'm pulling up into that, my car's setting in like a foot of water, right? If there's a traffic line, everybody's trying to get out of town. About that time, a tree falls onto a transformer. It hits the ground, explodes, and the lightning, electric emits from that, goes over the water, arcs across the car, hits the car in front of me. It jumps off my hood, hits the car in front of me, and blows the windows out of the car. There is now a lake of fire because it ignited fuel that was sitting on top of the water. So my car is sitting in a lake of fire, and I'm like, forget this. So I turned and drove into the Academy Green, drove through the grass, around everybody, through the bushes, and took off. And I got back to where we were staying at and started packing my stuff. At that point, Gage arrives back and starts to talk to me. He's like, man, let's just stay the night, wait it out. And I eventually listened to him. But this is where it started to go from just a really severe event to more of a paranormal approach.
Yeah, absolutely. The storm happened on a Wednesday night. It wasn't until Saturday that the National Weather Service came and surveyed the area. They confirmed that it was, in fact, an EF1 tornado. And they released the latitude and longitude coordinates of where the storm started and stopped. And this is where it gets really crazy, is because where the storm started was 900 feet behind Cherrick Clausen DeWitt's back door of the house that still stands. And the storm picked up at the church. So we don't know exactly how to explain that, but I will say very briefly, the day after the storm, before we knew it was a confirmed tornado, the day after, we did have a medium show up to the site and wanted to talk to Justin and I. Long story short, she told us that our ancestors are here. They're happy about what we're doing, and they wanted us to know that the storm last night was them returning from their home to see what we were doing.
That is insane. All right.
We have all of this on film, too, this whole interaction with this medium.
All right. We got to take a break here right now because this is just the beginning of the strange things that went on with this dig. We'll be back in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Welcome back. It's Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and I'm talking to Gage DeWitt, my distant cousin who has dug up our ancestor, Cherrick Clausen DeWitt, or Clausen DeWitt. And we've got another cousin as well, Perry DeWitt, who has joined the show, who was part of the dig last year. And there have been some very strange things that have happened. Not just the tornado you heard about in the previous segment, but talk about the dreams, Gage.
Yeah, so the night of the tornado, I began to have some pretty crazy dreams, but I didn't think much of them because I have a pretty active imagination, so I just didn't think much of it until 2 weeks after the dig ended. So for the previous 2 weeks after the dig ended, I was having the same dream every night. And long story short, what the dream was it was Perry and I, we were in the hole. It was about 5 feet deep. We were pushing this headstone out of the ground. It belonged to a woman named Nelcha DeWitt. And one of the archaeologists is at the top of the hole looking down at us. And we all look over, and there's Cherrick's skeleton laying there. Now, it's not animated, but we can hear him talking. He's speaking to us in Dutch. I had this dream every single night after the dig for a period of about 2 weeks. And I never told anybody about it until Perry contacts me and tells me that he's having weird dreams about the dig. And he describes the same exact dream that I'm having. And one of the archaeologists involved, now, mind you, this is the scientist involved, emails me and tells me that he's having spooky dreams about a dig for the first time in his career. So I called him, and he, lo and behold, describes the same dream that Perry and I have been having. So then I called Justin. Justin's having that dream. Jamie was having that dream. Mark was having that dream. Literally everybody involved in this dig was having the same dream.
Wow. And Perry, how did you feel when you heard about that?
I felt like, wow, I can't describe how I felt. The dreams that I was having before and after we were doing this project, it was weird.
Yeah, I bet so. But that wasn't the end of the weirdness, was it?
No, not at all. So we have this situation with the coin. So a little bit of a backstory. This is January of 2022. This is well before I knew Jamie and Perry. Justin and I already knew each other then, but Jamie and Perry, we had not even met them yet. And I was on eBay hunting for some 17th and 18th century Dutch artifacts, and I come across this coin. It looks like a penny. It's a 1795 VOC, which is East India Trading Company coin. It has a VOC logo on one side. It has a seal on the other side. And I ordered it off eBay. I think I paid $14 or $15 for it. I thought it was cool, put it as part of my collection, no big deal. Nothing to do with family history at all. I ordered this, get it in, and I look at it. I think it's cool, and I put it in this bowl. And now this bowl is a pretty special bowl because about 4 years ago, Justin and I went to the DeWitt plot to look. We had permission from the church to kind of poke around and look for the bottom half of a missing headstone from our family, Andres DeWitt's headstone. As we were poking around, we found little pieces of long gone headstones. So I collected them into this bowl. I put this VOC penny in this bowl, put it up in the top cabinet of my kitchen, and I don't touch it again for a week. And my father came over. I was going to show it to him, and I couldn't find it. Disappeared. I tore up the house looking for it. Never saw it again. This was January of last year, of 2022. You fast forward to about a month ago, Perry, 6 weeks ago, Perry calls me freaking out in the morning. Like, I had a dream last night. Cherrick said that he was going to leave me something. He was going to prove to me that it's really him. And he sends me the picture of my coin that I ordered off eBay. My coin. Now, I live in Louisiana. Perry lives in New York. I have never taken that coin to New York. Not even by accident, not on purpose. Perry sends me a picture of my coin that has been missing since January of 2022. Now, how do you explain that? I have no clue. Perry, how did you find this coin, man?
It's just weird. I get up in the morning, and right next to my nightstand, I leave my phone, and I grab my phone, and something fell on the nightstand. I had to double look because I thought it was like a regular coin, or a penny or something. I'm like, where's this coming from? So I look at it, I'm like, wow. This is a VOC Dutch Indian Company coin. I'm like, wow. Then I remember what Cherrick told me in my dreams. I'm like, then I smiled. I'm like, I didn't know how to describe what the feeling I had. I'm like, wow. And so it just overwhelms me. It's just weird.
So I've got to ask then, you have pictures of this from when you bought it on eBay, as I recall, Gage.
I do.
Are there any scuffs or marks on the coin with the picture you have that matches? It's got to be the same coin. I mean, these are not
the same coin.
They're not floating around. It obviously is, but I mean, that's incredible.
It's the same coin. They only minted this coin for 1 year. It is the same coin, and yes, there are marks on the coin. So it was part of a shipwreck that was uncovered, I think, in the 1970s. And so the coins do have a little bit of a green verdigris on it, maybe some corrosion, but it is the same coin. And not only do I have a picture of it from the eBay listing, I still have the eBay listing, timestamps, how much I paid for it, when I bought it, and when it was delivered to me. And I can prove when I met Jamie and Perry. I didn't even meet them until probably 3 months later after that coin disappeared. And we're talking a year and a half ago is when this coin came up missing. And this was a month ago when Perry finds this on his nightstand after having a dream that Cherrick says he's going to leave him something.
I didn't know anything about the story of what Gage told me. And I found that on my nightstand. And I just remember what Cherrick said.
What was the quote? What did he say in the dream?
Well, he speaks to me in broken English, Dutch. And he told me exactly that he's going to give me something and remind us this is not a joke. This is for real.
And I never told anybody about this coin when I purchased it. I mean, I didn't have a reason to. It had nothing to do with family history. So I ordered this coin, it disappeared, and I don't even think Justin knew about the coin. So we could entertain the idea that Perry's pulling a prank on me, but he would have no idea that I ever purchased that coin. That's what blows my mind. We don't have the evidence that we have about the tornado, but I can tell you right now that when Perry sent me a picture of that coin, I knew somehow, I cannot explain it, somehow my coin got from Louisiana up to New York on Perry's nightstand. I had no clue how.
It is weird. That is weird.
Perry, what has your family said about this?
They just looked at me like, are you for real? I was like, I'm telling you, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Cherrick comes in my dreams all the time. He talks to me and doesn't speak English that well, but sometimes when he gets real mad, he talks Dutch. It's amazing. It's awesome, actually, when he comes in my dreams.
So let me ask this then. Where is the coin now?
I have it right here. I'm looking at it right now. I have it in the cup here.
That's just the strangest thing I have ever heard. So who's going to wind up keeping it? Is that yours now, Perry, or is that going to be yours, Gage?
Man, I tell you what, if old Cherrick came to my house in Louisiana and gave this thing to Perry, I'm not going to mess with destiny, man. Perry, you can have it. Just buy me lunch, man. That coin cost me like $14. Cherrick obviously wants you to have it, bro, so you keep it. I'm not messing with Cherrick, man. I know the man can brew a tornado. I'm not messing with him. You keep that coin, Perry. You keep it.
Wow, we've got tornadoes, we've got common dreams, we have a psychic showing up at the cemetery, we have the coin story. The story's not over yet because the bones of these folks that you've exhumed are not back in the ground. And hopefully we can hear about the big celebration of that coming up here in the coming year. And then maybe they will leave you alone.
Absolutely, Scott. So far, nothing too bad. I mean, the tornado, it was a little scary, but I'm pretty intrigued by this, to be honest. And, after all, I am a descendant of Cherrick. So Cherrick was a very temperamental man, and I kind of welcome this. I'm kind of like, come on, Cherrick, what else you got, man?
Amazing. It's just something you have to really ponder. It's like, wow, how can these things be happening? But they obviously are. And thanks so much to both of you, Gage, Perry, and also to Justin for coming on in the earlier segment. Guys, we'll stay in touch. We got to keep following this whole story. It's amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. And for the skeptics out there, just as I was, if you want proof that this stuff is real, go dig up your ancestors' graves. You'll find out.
You'll find out. Exactly. All right. Thanks so much, guys. David Allen Lambert's coming up next for Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Hi, Genies. Fisher here, and I hear from so many of you all the time that I love all those family stories on Extreme Genes. Where can I find ancestor stories like those? The best answer? Digitized newspapers. And nobody has more digitized newspaper pages than newspapers.com. Newspapers.com has well over 800 million searchable pages from the United States and countries all over the world. Find those valuable obituaries and marriage accounts, often with photographs. Read your ancestors' funny stories, sad stories, and sometimes shocking stories. It was from newspapers.com that I learned about how my grandfather rescued a boy from a flooded lake during World War II. In another account, I learned that my wife's ancestor ran off with the wife of a farmhand and stole over $20,000 in the process. Newspapers.com is like that box of chocolates we always hear about. You never know what you're going to get. What will you find? Sign up now at newspapers.com. Hey, Genies. As we've dug into our family history explorations over the past year, our community at Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies has taken off. This is where you can meet like-minded genealogists who can help you break through those brick walls and find a whole city behind it, occupied by ancestors whose names you don't even know yet. This is where you can learn from your fellow Genies and ask questions, because many in our community have already been into some of the records you're looking for. Genealogy and Breakthrough Strategies is free. What a great place for brainstorming and getting to know other people who totally get your passion for family history research. If you're looking to take the next step in sharpening your skills, here's a great chance to learn from others and give back in areas you've already become expert in. So join us. That page again is Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies. It's a long name, but we cover a lot of territory. Genealogy and Family History Breakthrough Strategies.
Are you stuck in your genealogy research? Frustrated by those brick walls that just won't budge? Or confused by DNA test results and don't know where to begin? The experts at Legacy Tree Genealogists are here to help you find your missing ancestors and complete your family tree. With over 18 years of experience, Legacy Tree has assisted clients in every state and nearly every country worldwide. We have a vast network of on-site researchers, so no matter where your roots lie, we can work to uncover the answers you seek. Picture the thrill of making that long-awaited connection, finally discovering the missing link to your relatives. That's the joy Legacy Tree brings to countless clients just like you. Whether you're a beginning or seasoned researcher, brick walls happen. But with Legacy Tree by your side, that aha moment is within reach. Visit legacytree.com to learn more about how to work with Legacy Tree genealogists. Put your family history in our hands, and together we'll unlock the stories of your past. Get started today at legacytree.com.
All right, back at it with Ask Us Anything on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show at extremegenes.com. Fish here. David Allen Lambert is back from across the pond in Scotland. And Dave, our first question comes from Beth in Milwaukee. And she says, Fisher and Dave, I have a DNA match that is either a half-aunt or a first cousin. I have messaged her several times over the past year with no luck, and she has no tree. What is my next step? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would start this way, David, and say, if you can, look this person up on familytreenow.com. This is a place to find living people. And so if she has an unusual name, you might be able to identify the person and get an idea, first of all, of how old she is. Because if she's, say, 25 years older than you, then you will know right away it's a half-aunt. And the issue comes from your grandparents or one of them. Otherwise, you're looking at somebody who would be a first cousin. And that's a whole different story, of course.
Exactly. And, one of the things I find on some of my matches are, am I determining a first cousin or a second cousin? So it's so close. Is it a surprise first cousin that I don't know about?
Yeah, that happens. And, this is the benefit, by the way, if you haven't downloaded it yet, get Blaine Bettinger's most recent version of his shared centimorgan project. And it's just like a big card. And it breaks down every single possible relationship up through like fifth cousin or something like that. So you can see fourth cousins 3 times removed, second cousins once removed, third cousins, fifth cousins, half aunts, half uncles, half cousins, every single relationship. And he's done this through surveying many, many genealogists who know the relationship they have to certain DNA matches. And so they have submitted and said, okay, well, this is the number I have. And so Blaine has created this range of centimorgans that particular relationship can have, and also the average. So just as Beth was talking about in her email, the half-aunt has 871 shared centimorgans on average, but a first cousin is 866. They're virtually identical. And so we run into this with lots of different relationships and half steps with various generations. So it's important, if you can figure it out, to know what the age is of the person that you're dealing with. Sometimes you can tell just by looking at a picture of them. And
very true.
Hopefully they can give you enough information where you can either track them down, and better yet, obviously, is if they have a tree up there or they respond to your messaging.
That's always kind when people respond to your messaging. I've had some DNA people out there. I'm like, hello, you ever write back?
Well, I have a friend of mine who recently got into it, and he had a DNA match to a woman who had a common Irish ancestor, and this woman lives up in Canada, and she's aged and doesn't have a husband and has never been married, so she spends all her time on her family history, and she was thrilled to hear from my friend. So what she did is she popped in the mail to him this chart. And this chart, when assembled, went 20 feet long, covering many, many generations, and said, wow, this is your family. And he was able to use that to narrow down which descendants could possibly be his ancestor. He was trying to figure out who his grandfather's parents were. The grandfather had been on the orphan train from New York to Iowa in the 1890s. And so he was able to narrow it down to one woman who'd come over from Ireland and settled in New York, and it fit perfectly. And so, yeah, as a result of it, he's got hundreds of names. The line goes back a long, long way. and he now has the answer to that question. DNA is just such a powerful tool.
It's amazing what the next 5 to 10 years is going to bring.
Absolutely. So, great question, Beth. Hope that helps, and good luck with that. And we got another one coming up next, talking about some old school books that have turned up. We'll tell you more coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. All right, back for Ask Us Anything. It's our final question on our final segment this week on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and extremegenes.com. David, here's the question. It's from Olivia in Taylorsville, Utah. And she says, "Hi, guys. I recently went to a flea market and picked up a bunch of old school books that were signed by some children ranging between the 1890s and the 19-teens. One even had a report card in it."
Wow.
No kidding. How could I find the families of these kids to pass it on to them? Best, Olivia. Wow, good question.
Well, I mean, the census would be the best one, especially if you can catch some of those girls when they were not married yet. I mean, obviously, they're probably grade school kids, high school kids. So if you can find them in the context of just grouping some of the names together, see if they all show up in, say, the 1910 or the 1900 census in the same town.
Right.
Because school books were often handed down. Like, I mean, I remember going to school in the 70s where I wrote my name, but the person that had it last year had their name above it, and the name before that had their name above it. But in the 19th and early 20th century, they didn't usually have one of those forms printed on the inside flap. So they would write names on it. Yeah. They also could have been in private school. They could have purchased the book, and they could have kept it in the family, hence why one of them had a report card in it. I wonder if the kid who had the report card didn't want to show his parents and just return the book at the end of the year.
That's a real good thought. The other thing is, too, is, I would imagine that since you found a group of them, they likely came from your home state. So that kind of helps you narrow things as you do a census search to try to find these people. And if you can get an idea, say, from the report card, what grade that person is in, well, that helps you figure out what age they were and when they were born. So when you do the name search, you can figure out what year they likely were born.
Well, and it's true that you can also look at the book and see what date it was published, so you know not to look for someone before that date.
Right.
The other thing is you have to keep in mind school books back in the early part of the 20th century, late 19th century, kids had harder things to learn than we did when we were kids.
You think? And
you read through some of the things, the elocution, chemistry, biology, and this is for someone who's 10.
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
Right, well, that's really true. Did you ever imagine you would become a DNA specialist, David, at this point in your life?
No, I never would have thought, because I really was not that great at the sciences. I was good into geology. I was trying to go so far back in my genealogy, back to the fossil record, but I haven't found any relatives from the Stone Age yet. But as far as the ideas of what kids learned back then, you may track down that these all belong to one same student that just collected them through the years, or somebody bought a collection from a book collector. So they may be from different states. It depends.
Yeah, I suppose.
You could also do a little Google searching on some of the names, see if they show up in a newspaper graduating from the 8th grade or graduating as a senior in high school, as my own daughter did last year. 22 years of kids in the public school system ended last week.
Wow. That's great. Congratulations to her. And what a great question, too. What fun, when you come across something like that, to recognize that something might be of value to somebody else that they might enjoy owning. And sometimes we have that happening with information we find. And I know you've done it, and I've certainly done it, tracked down people that it might be of interest to. And it's amazing how either physical items like that or information can change lives and really make people happy. So it's great stuff. So good luck with that, Beth. David, thanks so much. Continue your joyous travels in Scotland, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, I'll be heading across the pond back home.
All right, buddy, take care. And thanks once again to our guests, Gage DeWitt, Justin DeWitt, Perry DeWitt, all distant cousins to each other and to me, having very strange things happen on their dig of our common ancestor. If you missed any of it, catch the podcast. You can find it on Apple Media, ExtremeGenes.com, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We are all over the place. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again next week. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.